Good job. What did you think was going to happen? Where do you think that theory ends up with? What the did you think was going to happen? It's just so stupid.
Hello.
All right. JD Vance got cooked. JD Vance got absolutely cooked at the Turning Point USA conference thing that he did last night by a bunch of right-wingers too, nonetheless. Very cool stuff. Why is the president taking on the role of a podcaster? I do not know. It's just podcaster world. I was talking to someone else about this, but I can't help but notice that like sometimes I think like I forget who I was talking to, but I was talking to someone about this where we were conversing about how stupid it is that JD Vance knows who I am or like knows the intricacies of drama that I get involved in. And this person brought up the fact that, yeah, well, for these guys, being a podcaster is the best possible job you can have. And it's kind of true. All the podcasters that work in the admin hate their lives now. Dan Bongino is on the verge of because he dropped his cushy job hawking pills and cryptocurrency to go actually do an honest day of work as a deputy director of the FBI. Podcasting is seemingly the ultimate job for these guys.
Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk here today. I did not agree with many of the things that you said right ahead of this, but I don't think that's my point to discuss here. What I want to ask is, you are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I mean, I just looked it up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before. But she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, they're that kind who got here just few years or few decades ago is different or is better than your mom's kind who got here just a generation before? How are you balancing that? And when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth.
What do you mean? What the is this question? She's popping off, dude. My queen. Chatters give no grace to someone whose second language is English. Calm down and listen to her words. She's saying, you got an Indian wife who's not Christian, and you're out here kicking big game about Christian nationalism and how immigrants are bad. Like, how do you educate your children on that? It doesn't make any sense.
Our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you as a vice president stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path and now how can you stop it? And tell us we don't belong here anymore. And one more thing, I'm sorry. One more thing. Do you have to
There's a lot there. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this, but
yeah,
I will try.
I'm sorry. I had to say all of this, and please take it with due. I mean, I'm saying all of this with due respect.
Go ahead.
I
Please.
have no intention of causing a scene here or anything, but
we're not close to causing a scene.
Yeah,
don't worry.
But we talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to show support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major things that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
Okay, so there was a lot there, and I'm going to try to respond to as much of it as I can. So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number of people. Sorry, what?
Can I continue on that? Because when you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish, we cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world. It's to look out for the people of the United States. Now,
Dog, your wife is Indian, owned. That's it. Do you feel like your wife is here taking advantage of American prosperity, or do you feel like your wife has contributed to American prosperity? That's the question. For white people who are coping about their position in society, that's the problem. Racist people think Indians, Muslims, whatever, brown people, black people, they come into this country and they take advantage of it. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. So, I would say it's a deep shame that he won't even factor that into his conversation here and use his own personal experience with a loved one to say, like, immigrants make this country great, because he can't say it. But that is the reality. He's so shameless.
now you asked a personal question about our interfaith household. And yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not in a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our 2 oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But, thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have...
It's so fake. When Hundo P, his kids are going to be dude. What a silly, stupid game we play in this day and age. Everything that this man does is calculated. He is the biggest brown noser of all time. He will literally farm out his children to advance a talking point. A cynical little weasel. If JD Vance was my dad, I too would renounce God. Well, it seems like if JD Vance was your son, you too also would renounce God and trade him for some perk 30s. Classic.
This own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a plan, and you try to follow it as best as you can, and that's what I try to do. I want to make a
It's so fake. Remember, he's a Yale graduate libtard. I guess there is some kind of divine punishment at play here because, like, you're trying to farm respect from an audience that literally thinks you married someone less than human. So good luck on that front. Who think your children are lesser than they are because they're half Indian. You have to really eat a lot of self-respect in that regard. It's probably even harder than doing this whole routine about Christianity and how you found God.
final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to be respectful to all the people behind you in line, but I want to make this point about immigration, okay? If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened over those 40 years? The many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture. I think we have two problems in our immigration system today. And my guess is you're probably a slightly more leftist political persuasion, liberal political persuasion, maybe not. But here's the thing. I remember back in my establishment GOP days when I was still very early getting involved in Republican politics,
That's literally like, what, 2 years ago? You mean 2 years ago? When Peter Thiel paid for you to run for Ohio Senate? He makes it seem like he'd been doing this for like 20 years. I think a lot of people forget that this man was a woke libtard on MSNBC in like 2018. I believe it was 2020, right? Was it the 2020 race where he won his seat? The only Peter Thiel candidate that actually won. Oh no, it's not even 2022. Not even 2020. Oh my God. 2022, baby. So yeah, it is literally 3 years ago. I was right. How incredible. Like, his wife married Usha, my queen, married a guy who wrote a famous book that liberals love to consume about how the white working class are stupid hicks with so much hatred in their hearts that they voted for Donald Trump because they're a bunch of racist, irredeemable, monstrous hicks. And then she had to sit there and watch him go on every neo-Nazi podcast for the next like 4 years, only to become the vice president of Donald Trump. Because remember, these are people that are Yale graduated. J.D. Vance called Donald Trump Hitler. They know better. Imagine getting married to a man and having children with a man only to have him turn into a groiper on camera. That's gotta be pathetic. You're like, hey, remember when we were at Yale and we were both woke? What the happened? And he'll obviously present that as like serious character development. That's one of the... Dude, here is another instance where it doesn't take much to grift to the right. Here's a guy who literally called Donald Trump Adolf Hitler, alongside RFK Jr., by the way, who also called him Adolf Hitler. And both have... Here's a guy who spent his entire career getting liberals to give him money, only to turn around and be like, I love Donald Trump, that's it. And everybody is like, oh, that's perfect. He loves Donald Trump. He said it. That's it. There is no version of this on the opposing side. Like, there's no world where you have, I mean, I guess you have the rhinos or the never Trump Republicans and stuff, but like, broadly speaking, I don't think liberals are so easy to trust, and leftists certainly are not easy to trust. The person who then turns around and says like, oh yeah, I know I spent my entire life's work is being a conservative, a shitty conservative, and working for the Trump administration and all this stuff, only to now turn around and be like, yeah, I'm actually good. Before you say they brought back motherfucking Cheney, man. Yeah, and it failed. I don't think liberals are as, I mean, with George W. Bush, maybe, but I don't think liberals are as open-minded to this kind of stuff as the Republicans are, is what I'm saying. And the left certainly is not. The left is not.
Remember a conservative think tank person who told me that one of the reasons why immigration was really good is that if you had enough diversity in a country, people would mistrust each other and they wouldn't join labor unions. Okay? So when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it. My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built. And that is really important to me. So the honest answer to your question, what is the exact number of immigrants America should accept in the future? Right now, the answer is far less than we've been accepting. We have got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration, which is one of the reasons why we have the immigration policy we do. Thank you. Next. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so
that's a groiper. Oh, here we go. We got the groipers. They're groiping up. They're groiping all up and down. Groipers didn't get their notes from King Groiper that you can't go that hard on Jews anymore because you want to be a part of the Republican infrastructure. Also, it's just incorrect. The notion that like the Jewish religion is actually in favor of prosecution of Christians, all this stuff. It's all unimaginably nonsensical garbage. It is a persecution fetish advanced over and over and over again. It's just dumb as.
Let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not.
Israel spit on Christians? Could he mean this? Yeah, that's Israel, dude. That's Israeli settlers in the West Bank. What the that got to do with, brother, if you live in a multicultural society, if you live in like New York or you live in Los Angeles or some shit, like that's not, if you think that that's what the average American Jew is doing or thinking, you are the most delusional person on the planet. Please. You're comparing a literal ethno-religious supremacist nation and some of the most fundamentalist weirdos within the ethno-supremacist religious, ethno-religious supremacist religious nation to what Jews do broadly, or even beyond that, what Judaism actually wants. That's the funniest thing is like these guys, they can't even just be like, yo, Israel sucks, which is like the normal position. It's an understandable position to have. Israel does. They have to be like, Israel sucks. But honestly, it's because of Judaism. It's because of the Jews. Like all this shit. It's just so up. Be normal.
Not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them. In that case, sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States.
When? Can you give me a moment under either Trump administration where Israel and American interests actually collided and America took action against Israel? At most, you made the Israeli fighter jets turn around after you had personally bombed Iran. You let Israel bomb Qatar 50 miles off your U.S. Central Command base in Doha. That literally did happen. So it kind of feels like, no, not USS Liberty, Chad. I'm talking about Donald Trump 1 and Donald Trump 2. Donald Trump is a bigger Israel rider than every other American president, with maybe one exception in Joe Biden. Okay? Like Joe Biden is a real ass ultra Zionist. Okay? But as far as like who, in terms of policy, has rode Israel's the hardest, it's not even a question. Both of these administrations, Donald Trump has Dick rode Israel so hard it turned into dust. That's what Israel Dick turned into, dust. That's how hard Trump rode it. He quite literally set the stage for October 7 to happen by completely writing out the Palestinians from the conversation and trying to move forward with normalizing relations between Israel and all the Gulf states. It is ridiculous. The question veers into anti-Semitic territory at the end, and Vance's own answer involves some prose or propaganda, but I can't imagine any of this exchange happening a decade ago. Politely disagree. This has been a paleocon thing for decades. Hate sending money to Israel. Don't like that it's filled with Jews. Also see it as a model for a white American ethno-state. It's Pat Buchanan's beat. Sure, but paleocons were marginalized for decades. You'd never see a VP fielding or answering questions like this. Yeah. I think there's also an argument for Obama being more of a dick rider than both Biden and Trump because of how much they endlessly railed against him, calling him an anti-Semite and Jew hater, yet he literally gave him billions on his way out. No. The reason why they gave him shit is because Barack Obama was pro-Israel as every other president was, but he was very much at odds with Israel's interests when it mattered, and that's the reason why they endlessly yelled at him and called him a Jew hater. The JCPOA was a moment where America was like, hold on, we're the superpower. We're going to deal with Iran ourselves. It's one of the only decent successes of his foreign policy accomplishments. Yeah, Barack Hussein Obama. So that definitely was a major shift, not prioritizing Israel's every interest. And it's not like he was, super invested in like the Palestinian plight or anything. He could have done a lot more in that regard. He didn't. But he was like, we're America. We're going to control our own Middle Eastern affairs. And Israel did not like that at all. And then Donald Trump won. And lo and behold, Donald Trump gave Israel the keys to the castle. They basically have dominated American Middle Eastern policy since then.
And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the President of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the President of the United States, they're not controlling this President of the United States, which is one of the reasons.
Yeah, right. Donald Trump has Miriam Adelson's old ass fingers shoved so far up that she basically opens and closes her mouth. The idea that this president is far, far more aggressive in terms of dealing with Israel is such a ridiculous statement. Miriam Adelson is resting her old ass hands inside of Donald Trump's nussy when she doesn't feel like making Trump talk. Get the out of here, dude. The major difference between Trump and Joe Biden is that even though they're both experiencing different stages of dementia, Donald Trump at least has some self-interest and he wants to do real estate developer deals. So the Gulf nations can sometimes cause him to moderate on his position. But that's it.
Why would it be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East? Now you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe.
Yeah. Famously, Israel has been far better. Famously, Israel's been far better at protecting religious sites that belong to the Christians as opposed to the thousands of years of Muslim rule. Okay? Get out of here. Get out of here, dude.
That is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to.
At last night's Turning Point event, a student was applauded for asking about Israel manipulating the U.S. and the Jewish religion openly supports the prosecution of ours. Vance's response, Trump is strong and he likes that Israel protects an important church. Vance didn't dispute the assertion that Israel may have manipulated the U.S. other than with Trump, what the questioner calls ethnic cleansing in Gaza, nor the claim that Jews are prosecuting Christians. He didn't stop the crowd from applauding all those statements. Oh, no. Edward, oh, no. Edward Isaac Dover. Oh, no. That's crazy. You mean to tell me it wasn't the left that was actually doing unlimited anti-Semitism? You mean to tell me that it was always and will continue to be the field of interest primarily dominated by the right? It's just so crazy because, like, this has always been the case and it will forever continue to be the case. And yet, for some strange reason, I know what the reason is, so many of the Israel writers for the last 2 years spent every waking moment talking about the anti-Semitism of the left, because they thought that they could get a lot of mileage out of, because they can't do there's anti-Semitism on the right because no one on the right gives a and the right is pro-Israel. But now that the right is no longer as pro-Israel as they used to be, and there is unlimited anti-Semitism coming from the right, and not just like anti-Israel sentiment. I'm talking like Judaism requires the consistent domination of Christianity, all this like nonsensical bullshit. Now that's running amok on the right. And there were so many conservative Jews who, for some weird reason, from David Horowitz to Ben Shapiro to Dennis Prager, that unironically thought that they could just continue doing anti-woke culture shit and continue doing unlimited far-right propaganda and not inevitably get to a point where the far-right base of support would inevitably go, wait a minute, why the f- don't we do this for Jews too? We hate everybody. Why not just Jews as well? That was always in the backdrop. Always in the backdrop where there were people waiting in the shadows being like, yeah, one day we can tie this all back to Jews openly as we do privately and quietly for the time being. So good job on absolutely gutting the institutional relevance and the institutional taboo of the term anti-Semitism by diluting it and weaponizing it primarily against leftists who were anti-Zionist but not anti-Semitic. Good job. What the did you think was going to happen? Also, why did you ever think that you could do great replacement theory fear-mongering as a Jew? Where do you think that theory ends up with? That's the other crazy thing. Like David Horowitz and Ben Shapiro, all these conservative Jews ran around doing great replacement fear-mongering. Who's doing the great replacement in the eyes of the right? They're not going to think it's global capital. They're going to say it's the international Jewry. That's what they used to say, and they're back to it. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? It's just so stupid. Yeah. Also, here is this. Kevin Roberts, Texas, the president of the Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action, has announced that the organization is standing by Tucker Carlson in the aftermath of Tucker's interview with neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes. This isn't Kevin bending his knee to Trump. This is something new. In his statement, Kevin condemns what he calls a venomous coalition that is sowing division by attacking Tucker. That venomous coalition includes MAGA Republicans as well as Jewish conservative commentators, activists, and donors. Kevin also frames Nick Fuentes' rhetoric as worthy of debate rather than something to be condemned outright. A shift like this would have been unthinkable for Heritage just 3 years ago. The Heritage Foundation is the vehicle that moves reactionary sentiment in this country. Make no mistake. No, this is not a let them fight moment. This is a consolidation moment. They are saying, instead of trying to stop the anti-Semitic forces, we are going to normalize them. Instead of trying to stop anti-Semitism, like open anti-Semitism, we're not even speculating at this point. This is not like, oh, are you anti-Israel? You must be anti-Semitic. Like, we're talking straight up Holocaust denial, okay? The one fucking thing that people post World War II had immediate disgust for, right? And was able to be held up as the one thing that you can't really get away with saying and doing for like 75 fucking years. And Israel bricked it in two. Remember, the Heritage Foundation also wrote Project Esther, which makes this a lot funnier because Project Esther is like opening up the floodgates under Project 2025. They wrote Project Esther, which is their project to basically destroy the First Amendment by opening the door by tackling anti-Semitism. I fear if you see this, you will never let it down, but I can't keep this from you. In short, the Turk is a gentleman and freedom exists only in Turkey. Kral Marx. Yeah, look at this.
Coming days. But today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique